Hey, we're just starting the class. Hold on one second.
Hi, Rabbi.
Good evening. Let's bring up the page. Okay, we're holding Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the laws of prayer for Shabbos. Not sure my computer's working a little slow here. All right, here we go. We're in the middle of the laws of Kabbalah, Shabbos, and Ma'ariv. So it says like this: Noihagin. The custom is Loimar Perek B'mei Madlikim. We say the chapter of the Mishnah that deals with the laws of the lighting of the Shabbos candles. That's Mishnayos. We say that on Friday night. However, we will not say the part of the Mishnayos that deals with the laws of lighting fires on Shabbos, even the Yom Tov shechal b'Shabbos, even if the Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos. Yom Tov be'erev Shabbos, or if Yom Tov falls out, if the holiday falls out on the day, meaning Friday is Chag and then goes into Shabbos. We have that sometimes. We'll have Thursday, Friday, and then Shabbos. So then we wouldn't say Mamad Likim. V'lai Shabbos Chol Moed, not Shabbos Chol Moed. So basically, the reciting of the Mishnayos b'Memad Likim about the laws of lighting candles, we do not say if we say it every Shabbos, aside if it's Shabbos and Yom Tov, Shabbos and the Chol HaMoed, or Shabbos following the Yom Tov. So let's see the footnotes. The footnote says like this. This is initiated by the Gaonim to say the Memadlikim. Chapter number 7 is it tells us this Mishnah of the second chapter of Shabbos. Friday evening. Okay, so he says like this: from the order in which the author, meaning the author of the Kitzur, placed this rule, it would appear that he held that it should be said after Ma'ariv. I mean, we already completed talking about the evening services, so it seems like he's talking about that we should say it after we conclude the evening services, which was the custom of Ashkenaz. That was the custom of the Ashkenazic Jews, traditionally the Jews that lived in France and Germany, and is also the opinion of Sefer Hasidim. Our custom, however, I'm not sure who refers to our, but I believe most synagogues, is to say it before Ma'ariv. They say it after we say the Lichadodi and the Kabbalah Shabbos. We say the part of the Mishnayos of Memad Likim. Barbara, if you're in the Chabad Shul, you would not notice that they say this because it's not the Chabad custom to say this on the Shabbos. According to the ruling, and the reason is that we say it before Ma'ariv is based on the ruling of the Avudur Raham, which was one of the opinions also of Ashkenazic, I believe, Jewry, but it's not the strict Ashkenazic. I've never seen it said after Ma'ariv. Even the shuls that I daven in, it says that they say it before. He says the reason for the custom is that the candle lighting and other things that should be done before Shabbos are discussed in B'mei Madlikim, because the reason we say before the Ma'ariv is because it discusses, the Mishnah discusses the things we should be doing prior to the Shabbos, like lighting the candles, etc. Shilo and Yavitz agree. Sefer Ha'itim say the reason was to denounce the Cartiers. They were a group of people that didn't believe in rabbinic law, who prohibited having fire in one's house. There's still, I checked, there's still about 30, 40,000 of them around. But in the times of the Gaonim and the times of about 1,000 years ago, they were very strong. At the time, especially Reb Sadia Gaon, they were a very strong presence. The Rishal, in responsum 64, says, and the Shulchan Aruch Rav maintained that it should be said before Kiddush. So the Chabad minig is to say it, I guess, he says it brings down from the Alter Rebbe to say it before Kiddush. Some people in the Ashkenazic would say the Memadlik in the second chapter of the Mishnah of Shabbos would say it on after the Ma'ariv, and the custom of most people, which is based on the Avaduram, and others say it after the Lichadodi before we say the Baruch Hu. Okay. However, we don't say it in any connection with the holiday, and the reason is lest it be said even when Yom Tov is on Erev Shabbos. And the reason we don't say that is he says, let's see what he says, and it's not said when the Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, because he may say it on Yom Tov when it falls out on Friday. And what's the reason we don't say it if it falls out on Friday? Because it talks about tithing, and tithing and making an Erev as instructed in the Memadlikim are prohibited when Yom Tov is on Erev Shabbos. So the reason why we don't say it on Yom Tov when it's Shabbos or Shabbos Chol HaMoed, because it's like Yom Tov, because maybe you're going to end up saying it when Yom Tov is Friday. And because Memadlikim discusses things that we have to do on Erev Shabbos, even though we're allowed to light candles on Yom Tov, but there are other things that we're prohibited from doing. For instance, tithing is prohibited on the holiday. So is making the Erev. The permissible things for whether it's carrying or cooking, as instructed in B'mei Madlikim, because we talk about that, and they're prohibited when the Yom Tov is on Erev Shabbos. So therefore, we omit this. The Mishnah is on anything connected to the holiday, and the Rashal maintains that it should be said every Erev Shabbos. Both that should be said every Erev Shabbos. Both are consistent with their opinions as to the reasoning for saying it. Okay. So they say it's mashma. It seems from what he's saying from the Rashal is that the Rashal says that we say it every Erev Shabbos means that we say it even if it's Yom Tov. And the footnote number 27. What was the reasoning? Let's go back to make sure I got this right. No, it doesn't say footnote number 27. Maybe he meant 28. Okay. Let's see, continue. Law number 10. This is a law everyone loves. Noigin, the custom is Shabbos we do not wake up early on Shabbos as early as we would in the week. So if you wake up early in the week, you're an early riser, Shabbos is a good time to sleep in a bit. Doesn't say to sleep in too much. Mishum d'sheina mi'oinik Shabbos. Sleeping is part of the joy of Shabbos. So to sleep in a bit on Shabbos is not only okay, but it's also the custom. Vasmechuhu akra. Hey Aaron, and we're holding law number 10, and we have support from a verse. Now, one of the things that, again, we said that the prayers of the morning and the afternoon are connected to the sacrifices of the Tamid that were done in the temple, which are the consistent sacrifices that were done in the morning and the afternoon. Tamid shel Boiker and Tamid shel Ben Harboim. So they're talking about the custom that one does not sleep in, does not wake up as early on Shabbos as we do in the week. We know most shuls start later on Shabbos. So if there's a minyan in the week at 7 o'clock, a lot of shuls will start at 8 o'clock on Shabbos. And the reason is one should sleep on Shabbos. This is part of the joy. Where is the support for such a concept? Is that when it talks about the morning sacrifice during the week, it says baboker in the morning, and b'Shabbos nemru b'yom Shabbos. Shabbos doesn't say the morning; it says the day of Shabbos. And because it says, hold on a second, the day of Shabbos, so it means to say is not so early in the morning. In Chabad we daven quite a bit later, but others daven a little bit later. Hold on, there's still people that wake up early, and plenty of people that daven nates on Shabbos as well. The mashma ichor, the fact that it says doesn't mention the morning Shabbos, but the day of Shabbos, means to say that it seems like on Shabbos they possibly sacrifice the Talmud sacrifice a bit later than they would during the week. When we call makam tzrichim lizar, but still one has to be very careful. Shlei la'achar zman kriya shema utfila, not to daven too late past the zman. There's a time that's the cutoff time when you can't say there's sof zman krishma, the end of the time saying krishma, and there's the end of the time of davening, a preferred time of davening. So you don't daven post past those times, but a little later than their week is okay. Yes, Aaron.
So what does it say about learning? Because I say 8:30 till about 9, we do Mishnayos, and then we start to pray.
Now, again, the learning is always good before davening because we're a little more relaxed in the week in Shabbos than we are on the week we have more time. So, of course, your rabbi is going to have a shiur. Most communities have a shiur in the morning before davening. That's okay. The idea is to sleep in a little more. It's a person should try to get a little more sleep on Shabbos than one gets during the week, because part of the joy of Shabbos is to sleep. And like at least he brings the support that the sacrifice was a bit later. But it doesn't mean you have to sleep straight till 9. If you wake up at 8 and get to shul at 8:30 and have a little class of Mishnayos and then daven, that's of course preferable as well.
Thank
you. 31. No, just giving us sources. 32. Okay. And it says he's talking about the smachta. The smachta means it doesn't say clearly in the Torah you have to sleep in or daven later a little, but there is support to this idea based on the fact that the sacrifice in the morning on Shabbos doesn't mention the word morning, it just says the word day. So he says in the footnote number 32 like this: the later poskim raised the question, it means the later halachic authorities raised the question that this verse is said in reference to the Musaf offering and not the daily offering. So they say there's a support that says Ubiyoma Shabbos, but Biyoma Shabbos is not talking about the Tamid. It's talking about the special sacrifice of Musaf. Musaf means the additional sacrifice that we have on Shabbos. So there's no proof that we have to sleep in on Shabbos because it says Ubiyoma Shabbos. Biyoma Shabbos is talking about the later sacrifice, which is the Musaf. So what's the proof that you want us to bring us support to daven a little later on Shabbos? So he says, the Magen Avram answered. So the Magen Avram, again, is one of the main Ashkenazic authorities in Halacha. He says that since the Musaf offering is brought later in the day, the 6th hour, the daily offering was also later than usual in order that there not be too much time between the two offerings. So the very fact that the Musaf was also brought a bit later so from there is a proof that they also did the morning sacrifice a bit later, so there shouldn't be such a separation between the Musaf and Shachris. Therefore, there's a lot of customs, whether it's the Kiddush Club or what have you, there's a little bit of separation between our morning prayers and the Musaf prayers, but Mincha we do much later, Musaf we do earlier. Okay. Now he's going to go into the next question. When should one say the Musaf? Again, the word Musaf means addition. And this is a Musaf sacrifice we have on holidays, on Rosh Chodesh, on Shabbos. So whenever we have the special sacrifice for the holiday or the Shabbos or the new month, that's called Musaf. And we to commemorate that sacrifice, we have a special prayer in the prayer that we daven the Musaf sacrifice, corresponding to the Musaf sacrifice. So what is the time one should daven Musaf? So he says in law number 11, Zman tfilas musaf umiyad achet tfil shachris. One should try to daven in conjunction with what we just said from the Magen Avram, that the fact that we musaf is the day, and we're supposed to do the morning sacrifice next to musaf sacrifice. So now he says, when is the musaf? Right after shachris. Unlike mincha that we do in the afternoon, musaf is done right after we pray shachris. And either way, it shouldn't be after 7 hours. Again, what's 7 hours? We're talking about 12 hours of the day. There's always 12 hours of a day. Unlike the 24-hour calendar, which we use for secular time, the lunar calendar has 12 hours no matter when. It could have 40 minutes, it could have 60 minutes, that have 70 minutes, depending on the winter, summer, and location, but there's always 12 hours of the day. So it means past midday, you shouldn't daven the Musaf after 7 hours. So 7 hours means 1 hour after midday of whatever that midday is, depending on winter or summer. Yes, Aaron?
So you're saying that we should sleep in, and then you giving when you should say Musaf, but using the 12-hour day Is it the same time to say Shema as it is on the weekday?
Yeah, Shema doesn't change.
So then if you sleep in, you can't sleep in, you can only sleep to a certain time because you got to make Shabbos.
That's what he finishes off in the law. He says in the law, make sure to be conscious of not of the Shacharis time. There's also a cutoff time for Shacharis. One shouldn't daven Shacharis past a certain time. So you should, I mean, you can, but it's better not to. So one is you should make sure that you say the Shema. Yeah. So if the Shema, if the cutoff time for Shema is 8 o'clock, then you have to be up before 8 o'clock. If the cutoff time is 9 o'clock, you have to be up before 9 o'clock. But usually, traditionally, what he means to say is a lot of people wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning in the week, right? People get up and they go to work.
So our shul does 6:25 if you're reading Torah, and 6:30 if you're not reading Torah in the week, and then 9 o'clock is when we do Shabbos.
There you go. See, there you go. That's because that's according to what they just said in the Shulchan Aruch. That Shabbos is a little later.
Okay, but I was just wondering about the Shema.
And I'm saying is, yeah, but so Shema, sometimes Shema could be before, I don't know if today, a lot of shuls would be, let's say Chabad shuls. Chabad shuls daven late, even past Shema time. So the Chabad custom is you make sure to say Shema before you say the Shacharis. A lot of the shuls will make sure that the minyan is going to say Shema before that cutoff time of Shema. So I don't know the times of New York, but I'm assuming that your rabbi has the times of Shacharis in the way that if you start davening at 9, you said 9 o'clock you start davening?
For a
Shabbos.
Shabbos, yeah.
I'm assuming you get to the Shema by 9:45.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so I'm sure with that in that time he feels comfortable you're covering this man Shema. Yes, Barbara.
So where I go, which is a Chabad shul, that we don't start davening until 10. And
Yes.
so when we do that, I should say the Shema before I even go to shul to make
Yes.
sure I've said it before 9.
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, I'll give you an example. I don't know, every city is different, but I'll give you an example. Let's say if I want to check Zmanim today in Yerushalayim. So, okay, this app is doesn't usually cooperate. All right, it's not working. It's trying to give me all kind of pop-ups. All right, so this okay, let's see. So it says here, latest time for tefillah today. Let's say in Jerusalem today. Right now it's 5 in the morning in Jerusalem. So the latest time for davening Jerusalem today would be, according to the Gra, 9:45 would be to daven Shacharis. Latest time for Shema is 8:44. So if you had a minyan today, even in your shul, let's say, at 8:44, it started at 9 o'clock, you would have to say Shema even in New York before that time.
Okay.
I don't know. So you'd have to check your Zmanim of when Seif Zman Krishma. But I'm giving you, for instance, Brooklyn today, the latest Shema in Brooklyn today, it's different, is 9:59.
Okay.
Certain time in Seattle would be around that time as well, plus minus.
Yeah, I'll just say this. My son says it's hard when he's in a Chabad because they start so late. He says, I'm already up.
Yeah, so some people, the idea of the reason why Chabad starts late is because we learn in the morning Chassidus an hour and a half. That was the time the Rebbe started. But if that's not, if you only have the Chabad minyan, of course you daven with the minyan. Nothing wrong. It's a proper time. You make sure to daven with that minyan, and you make sure to say Shema before the cutoff time. So for New York, it would be 9:50, whatever I said, 9:59.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, so now he's like this again. Musaf should be said before 7 hours, which is before midday. And now he says, if you are to daven the Musaf after the 7th hour, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says, Nikra Poisheya, you are considered a person who's negligent with the Zmanim. The Alpha became, nevertheless, although you're negligent, you're still Yoitza Yidei Chavos, so you still are. It's not as if you haven't prayed it. It's considered as if you prayed it. At the end, you can sacrifice the Musaf a whole day, but it's supposed to be done before the 7th hour. Okay, footnote number 33. What's the 7th hour? He says the preferable time for the Musaf offering in the Holy Temple was until the end of the 7th hour of the day. Now you could do it a whole day. You have to remember something. The new moon and all those things that when the witnesses would come with the new moon, We didn't know always when Rosh Chodesh was, when Rosh Hashanah was. So there's always a question when if they would sacrifice a musaf. Sometimes they sacrifice the musaf late. So that's why the musaf is called a yom. Okay. Because sometimes the witnesses, until they showed up to the temple and they declared it the new month, and then they had to do the sacrifice for the new month. Okay. Now it's like this. Let's say, for whatever reason, you didn't daven on time, the musaf, and it's late in the afternoon, and it's time to pray mincha already. So do you daven the mincha first or the musaf first? Now again, mincha, you have to remember, is corresponding to the afternoon daily sacrifice called the Tamid Shel Bein Harabayim. Kugoin, what would be the scenario that you have these two prayers in front of you? You're going to when does mincha start? After the earliest time you could daven mincha is after half hour past midday. Again, midday doesn't mean 12:30. It means whatever the 6th hour of the daylight time is. Again, depending on the winter and the summer, the Shas Zmanis has a different amount of time. So, but after 6.5 hours is ready time, you can daven mincha. You don't have to daven mincha, but you can daven mincha. So which one should you daven first? The mincha or the musaf? Again, this is a question that the minyan could have, or if you're davening as an individual. The tarech hispal tchilas mincha v'achach musaf. First you do the mincha, the Kitzur says, and then you do the musaf. Why? Because mishum the mincha tadira yoser. The rule is when you have two options to do any mitzvah, and the question is, which mitzvah do you do now? So the answer would be you go with a mitzvah that's more tadir, that's more regular. And because we do mincha every day, we only do musaf on the Shabbos or holidays or new month. So therefore, the mitzvah that's more regular comes first. Now, one could ask the question, what about Hey Rebecca? Well, one could ask the question in Law 11, 12. One could ask the question, but what did they do in the Beis HaMikdash? Would they sacrifice the Bein Arbayim before they did the Musaf? I don't believe so. The Kaimalan, the rule is Tadir, B'She'eni Tadir, when something is a regular practice and something is more unique, is irregular, we go with the regular before we go with the irregular. Nevertheless, it says this is only talking about an individual, but the shul should never daven mincha before they daven the musaf. Yes, Aaron.
If you're davening in a minyan, how could the Hazen forget to do musaf because you're following the Hazen?
It could be it's not about forgetting. There could be many scenarios where the minyan, for whatever reason, let's say Yom Kippur, right? Yom Kippur is we do a long chakras, and a lot of times there's plenty of shul where the musaf is after 6.5 hours, right? Because you daven chakras long, and you have a long reading, and then you do the shofar blowing. So Rosh Hashanah and Kippur are regular times for us to be davening the musaf after 6.5 hours. So
you didn't forget it. It took too long to get to it.
Or whatever. Maybe there was an emergency. I don't know. There could be many scenarios that doesn't work out. The question is what you do in such a scenario. So he says, if you're davening alone, daven the mincha first because it's tadir. It's what's more common. If it's more regular. If you're davening the minyan, you should nevertheless daven the mincha first. Again, I don't believe that in the temple they would do that. But even though the tefillos are a correspondence, I learned the tefillos are accordance to the sacrifices. I have to believe that it's because of the tefillah is not exactly the sacrifice. We come first with the tefillah. Okay. So hey Danny. So let's see what he says over here. He just quotes the sources for that. Rambam says in order. Why do we do the minyan first? The mincha always comes after the musaf, in order that the congregation not think that mincha always precedes the musaf. If you're going to do it alone, so you know the law, so you can decide how you're going to do it. But if you're going to do it as a minyan, someone may not know the law and that may not know all the details of the law, and may therefore think that it's the custom to always do musaf after mincha. Okay, again, I have to check the law in the Beis HaMikdash. I'm 99% sure in the Mincha law that in the Beis HaMikdash they wouldn't do the Musaf before Mincha. but before the Talmud Shabbat and Harboim, but here we're talking about prayer. Okay, now in the Musaf prayer on Shabbos, we have the Kedusha, the Keser, or other customs have other nuschas, but we say the Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad in the Musaf. And so it says like this: B'kedusha de Musaf Omrim Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. In the Musaf that we say the Shema Yisrael by the Kedusha, Umiyad Oimrim Hakal, and the community responds to the Chazan Echad Hu Elokeinu, right? We say Hu Elokeinu Hu Avinu. So he says Hu Tos. That's a wrong way to do it. Ki Asr Leimer Tevis Echad Shtei Pa'amim Ritzufos. You can't say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad Hu Elokeinu. So you don't say the Echad, you just say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad Hu Elokeinu. El Yomer Hashem Echad Hu Elokeinu. Ach Shliach Tzibur Shu Mamtim Al Tzibur. But if the Chazan, who's called the Shliach Tzibur, the emissary of the congregation, is what we refer to as the Chazan, because he is the emissary of the congregation, is because he's waiting on the community to say it, and then he's the kahal, and then he responds afterwards. He could say echad because he said Shema Yisrael before. Okay, Kivon.
Can you explain the Hebrew words in English? The difference in English.
So we say the verse, that the holy verse Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, Shem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, God is one. And then the custom is that we say after that, Hu Elokeinu, He's our Lord. So some people had the custom, I guess, to say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, God is one. One is our God. So we're not supposed to say God is one, one is our God. You say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, God is one. And then we say He is our God, instead of saying one is our God. We don't say one twice. That's the point.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. I'm not sure what he's referring to, but possibly once upon a time that was a custom. Okay, there's no real footnotes on this. I don't think so, no. Okay. Now this is a famous halacha. B'mincha, we all know that it comes to, oh, Barbara, yes, you have a question?
Yeah, when I pray the Shema at home, I should not say one twice. When I say it, I should, instead of saying, when I say it in Hebrew, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, I shouldn't say the English translation of that, of Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. I should say our God is one. Or how should I say that?
Do you always read Hebrew English?
I always do the Hebrew and then recite the English. I don't need to say the English then, in other words. I guess I'm just used to saying the English.
It's always good to understand what you're saying. It's a good question. Shema, when it comes to the Shema, the halach is that a person is not supposed to, so a lot of times people get very, what's called, bikavana, in deep concentration, or isboinus, contemplation, when it comes to the Shema. So the halach is very clear. You're not allowed to say Shema, 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 or Achad, Achad, Achad. You have to be very careful with the Shema to repeat. It's biblical. So but to say it in Hebrew and then translate it in English so you can understand what you're saying if you don't understand the Hebrew, so that could be different. But if you understand the Hebrew in a certain verse, it may be special when it comes to the Shema, saying it so many times, then it's maybe better in that case not to repeat it.
Okay, no, I understand the Hebrew, so I just thought I had to repeat it in English. Okay,
No,
so
you don't have to. You don't have to. No,
okay,
no.
All right. Thank you.
So like this, mincha koydem kriya. When it comes to mincha, we have an addition. When it comes to Shabbos, we have an addition in the kriya that's unique. It means Ezra the scribe. We learned about Ezra the scribe yesterday in the Talmud class. Ezra the scribe instituted certain institutions. One of them was that the Jewish people shouldn't go. He redid the covenant. It's very. The whole Ezra's was a fascinating part of our history. So he redid the covenant after the destruction of the first temple, starting the second temple. So he instituted a lot of decrees. One of them was that the Jewish people should never go 3 days without reading Torah. And because of that, we have the Monday and Thursday readings of the Torah. The Moshe Rabbeinu instituted that we should read Shabbos afternoon. Okay, so we have the Shabbos afternoon reading that we do aside from the morning reading. So mincha kodem kriya. So it says when it comes to the mincha, which is we only have the reading on Mincha. When do we do reading on Mincha? Only on Shabbos. We don't do it on the Yom Tov, or on a fast day. Fast day we also read twice, in the morning and the afternoon. So on the Mincha on Shabbos, Kodim Kriyas Torah, before we read the Torah, we have a special verse that everyone says. And what is that verse? Va'ani tfilasi. What is the full verse is that we say it every day as well. But this that we say, Ani tfilasi l'cha Hashem, right? Here, let's read it inside. It says, we say on Shabbos Mincha, we say before we take out the Torah on Shabbos morning, Shabbos afternoon, we say the verse Ani tfilasi v'ani with a vav means my prayer l'cha Hashem eis on a special time alikim berov chazdecha with your great compassion or kindness aneni answer me be'emes yishecha for your salvation. So we say this verse every Shabbos before we read the Torah. Why do we say this? So he explains. This is because based on the way that rabbis explain this verse. The va'ani means, when you say, if we would say ani, that I am praying, is just a statement. When you say ve'ani, and I'm praying, you're kind of referring to something else. What is it? Because it says like this, Yasichu bi yoishvei shar uniginois shoisei sheichar. The verse says before that. But as for me, they talked of me, those who sit at in the gate, and about me are the songs of drunkards. So that the drunkards are talking about me. That's referring to Gentiles. And it says, Va'ani, however, I tefillah my prayers to God. So what does this all mean? So the rabbis have taught us, Amr David l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. King David said to God, Rebbeinu Shleila, Master of the universe, Ein umazu kishar umas ha'olam. The Jewish people are unlike any other nation of the world. Umas ha'olam, the nations of the world, kishem shaisim, umishtakerim, when they eat, drink, and get drunk, holchin ufaychazin, they misbehave. They get drunk and they go out there and make a balagan, like they say. V'anu loichin, the Jewish people are not that. It was meaning to say, because Mincha comes after our Suda Shabbos, after our meal, and we make Kiddush, we drink wine, we eat, and we also have Simcha. Nevertheless, that we don't go and get drunk and misbehave. Anu loichen, ela afal pisha shasinu, even though we just drank, we had l'chaim and Kiddush by the meal. But we go and we use that energy to go daven to Hashem. Therefore, we say before the reading of the Torah, to thank our Creator, our formation, our Creator, meaning Hashem, that He didn't place us like them, even the people that you could say are empty, not so full of Torah mitzvahs. Nevertheless, the Torah, everyone comes to shul to hear the Torah reading. So therefore, we read the verse of Ani tfilasi before we read the Torah to make a statement about Jewish pride. That how do we behave when we have a Suda Shabbos? We go out there and we go to shul and we learn Torah. What about in Yom Tov? We don't have the reading in the afternoon and the holiday. So Yom Tov shechol b'chol, unless Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos. But if the holiday falls out in the week, she'ein kohen b'Torah, there's no custom to read afternoon reading of the Torah. Say we omit that verse in the mincha of the holiday. Let's say you are alone and there's no Sefer Torah, you may think that we omit it as well. We say it. You would say it before you say the half Kaddish before the Shemona Esrei. You always make sure to say the Kaddish first. Sorry, the prayer first. The Kaddish should be right before we say the Amidah prayer. Okay. Yes, Aaron.
Just using Hanukkah as an example of a holiday, there's a special reading each day of Hanukkah on the Torah. So I don't understand. You're saying we don't read the Torah.
We don't read the Torah in the afternoon.
We don't read it in the afternoon at all?
Not on Hanukkah.
But what about other holidays?
No, the only time we have an afternoon reading is on Shabbos, or Yom Kippur, or a fast day, which Yom Kippur is a fast day. But, so we don't drink then, so there would be no reason to say I need tefillah. We're fasting.
Not right? Even on the new month?
No.
Okay,
no,
I'm
no afternoon.
thinking,
There's no afternoon reading. I'm talking about afternoon reading of the Torah, not morning reading.
okay, got you.
Meaning with the afternoon prayer, with the mincha prayer.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm
Chabad
kind of,
custom is, I don't know what other customs is. In Chabad custom, when we open up the ark for the morning prayer, we put in the Ani Tefillah there, even though kind of David's argument to God is not really there because we haven't eaten yet and we haven't drinking yet, but nevertheless, we put in the Ani Tefillah before we open the ark in the morning on the Chag, when we open up the ark and we say the Rabbon Shalom. We don't do it on the new month, we don't do it on Hanukkah, and that's Shabbos Hanukkah, of course, then we do it on the holiday. So the Yom Tov, we put the Ani Tefillah in the morning prayer. Okay. Let's see the footnotes on this. I always love this law because it's a beautiful law because it kind of ties the whole Shabbos together, right? Where the whole Shabbos will be, a person could be, it kind of elevates this one verse, and the message behind the verse kind of elevates the entire Shabbos, that the whole point of Shabbos, the whole point of Simchas Shabbos, of joy and saying L'chaim and Kiddush, is all I need tefillah see, is all the way for us to daven better to Hashem. Okay, it's 37 is 36, these are all verses, references, 37, 38. Okay. So Aniv tefillah is not said in the holiday. Rashi and Sefer Harpardes and Shibbolei Haleket are the source for this ruling. Ezra did not ordain that the Torah is read at Mincha on Yom Tov. So we talked about Ezra. Ezra, the scribe, is the one who brought the Jewish people back to build the second temple. And one of his takanos, one of his things was to read on the Mincha afternoon. He did not do that for Yom Tov. Rashba rules. Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet lived in Spain, a Sephardic posik in the times of the Rishonim. He rules that this pasuk is said only on Shabbos because Shabbos is a time of great favor for the Jewish people, more so than Yom Tov. The reason is also mentioned in the Zohar. This reason is also mentioned in the Zohar. That's because Shabbos is a more elevated time, therefore we say it on the Shabbos. Again, Chabad is, we do say it in Yom Tov, but we say it in the morning. The ruling, what's this about? Okay, so why do we say it even if there's no Sefer Torah? So this ruling concurs with Eliyahu Rabbah, Pri Megadim, Derech HaChaim, and Mishnah Brura. Magen Avraham, however, rules that it is said only when there's a Sefer Torah present. So basically, the idea is like this. How do we learn what King David is saying? Is King David saying that we're coming to pray, or that we're coming to learn Torah and listen to the Torah reading? If there's no Torah reading, Magen Avraham says, then you would omit this prayer. But the other opinions is no, that because it's the time of reading the Torah, even if you personally don't have a Torah, it still would be said on the Mincha if you're reading alone, or even if you're in Shul and the Shul doesn't have a Sefer Torah. Okay, law number 15. We're talking about the mincha. La'acher chazaras hashmon esrei. The custom is that after we do chazaras hashas, means we do the repetition of the shmon esrei on the mincha. Nogin. Well, it's not 18 blessings, but he's just calling it the 18 blessings. The mincha obviously is only 7 blessings. It's called Nogin lomer tzidkas tzedek. We say that tzidkas tzedek, your righteousness is righteousness everlasting, right? Tzedek lo'ilam. That's a part we say. Hold on, Aaron.
okay.
That's a part we say in the mincha. Why? These are 3 verses. Ke'ein tziduk hadin is to justify, so to say, the judgment. There were 3 righteous leaders who died in the mincha time, and because they died in the mincha time, one could be thinking that maybe it was unjust for them to have died. So we give tziduk hadin, we justify the judgment and say that God, so to say, was right. Who are the 3 great righteous that died in the mincha time of Shabbos? Yosef, which is the son of Jacob, right? Moshe Rabbeinu, and King David. That's miyad, right? What about if the Shabbos falls out on a day that we would not say the Tachnun, let's say Rosh Chodesh, etc., or Chanukah, Ein Omer Moise, we don't say the Tzidkascha, because it's a kind of Tachnun. But when you're in the house of a mourner, even though the house of a mourner, one does not say Tachnun, nevertheless, if you're davening on Shabbos in the house of a mourner, some people have that custom. Omer Moise, we do say that the Im Lo Yemru Have Parhesi, then you're actually publicizing that Shabbos is a time of mourning. You don't do anything publicly as far as mourning goes on Shabbos. Yes, Aaron. You want to ask something?
When does he, the significance of 18, because you said he called it 18. Where did he get the 18 from?
In the week, we have 18 blessings. Even though it's 19, the 19th blessings in addition.
Okay, thank you.
So when we say Shemona Esrei, people say Shemona Esrei. Shemona Esrei means 18. We refer to the Amida as 18 because there's 18 blessings. The 19th was added. I'm just saying is that on Shabbos, there is no Shemona Esrei. There's not 18 blessings. There's 7 blessings, right? We have 3 in the beginning, 3 in the end, and 1 in the middle. But he's referring to the Amida, which is known as Shemona Esrei. I just find it interesting that he could have called it the Amida. Maybe that he doesn't refer to the Shemona Esrei ever as the Amida. Okay, number 40. This is the order of Nusach Ashkenaz. The order of Nusach Sfard is the reverse. Okay. This says there's different ways we put the 3 verses, whether you're Ashkenaz or Sfard. But the idea is it's connected to Tziduk Adin. What's Tziduk Adin? Tziduk Adin is like this, 41. Is a special prayer which is said at the graveside, expressing God's righteousness and our acceptance of the divine decree. So we accept God's decree, so to say, that these 3 righteous people, Yosef, Moshe, and David, passed away in the Shabbos afternoon. So he says, we say in the house of a mourner, even though ordinary Tachnun is not said in a mourner's house, but because we don't want to publicly demonstrate mourning on Shabbos, therefore we say specifically the Tzidkascha, which is Tachnun, kind of like Tachnun on the Shabbos. He says, Sefer Tosfos Shabbos, however, Yosef Das responds in 400 maintains, as does the Pri Megadim, that even in private it is said in the mourner's house. It's not just the idea of Perhesia, but even privately, which privately we do mourn on Shabbos, nevertheless we say the Tzidkascha prayer on Shabbos. So if God forbid someone is in a situation of mourning and you're davening the Mincha alone, you would still say the Tzidkascha on Shabbos. Okay, let's do one more long. Yes, Aaron.
I'll just say one thing, because you mentioned Sephardic versus Ashkenaz. Sephardic's similar, and a Chabad guy, one of my Chabad friends, said if you can't find a Chabad close enough, they'll walk to the ends of the earth. But if you want to go to somewhere really close, it's easier for them to do Sephardic, than do Chabad. Then do Ashkenaz, because it's in the same, Sephard is in the same, and Chabad.
Nusach Sfard is very similar to the Nusach Ashkenaz.
Right, but Sephardic
the Nusach Chabad, yeah,
is also similar, because there's a difference between Sephard and Sephardic. Sephardic is the Middle East, the Spain.
All right. Let's do one more law, and then we'll open up to questions. Let's say you made a mistake. This happens, unfortunately, sometimes, that you're davening Shabbos and Yom Tov, and you just started to say Atachonen. I led the Mincha services last week, and I was in a rush, and I made that mistake when I was the Chazan. I started Atachonen instead of saying Ata Echad. So you start saying the 4th blessing like you would in the week. In the middle of the blessing, you remember, oh, it's Shabbos. So I'm saying the wrong blessing. So what would you do? Do you stop in mid blessing and start with the Shabbos bracha, or what? So he says, Sarch ligmar kol oise bracha she'eschol, finish the blessing where you remember, meaning 4th, 5th, 6th, whenever you catch that you made that mistake. Then start the Shabbos blessing. Or if it's the Yom Tov. Batamhu, why would you continue to say the blessing? Because really, even the morning and after the morning and evening prayers and afternoon prayers of Shabbos should be just like the week. And we should just mention Shabbos like we do on Rosh Chodesh in the week in, let's say, a kind of Yalav V'Yovo, special prayer for Shabbos. We should just put in to the part of Ritzei, Rosh Chodesh v'Chol Hamod, like we would do on Rosh Chodesh or when the Chol Hamod falls out during the week. They covered Shabbos because special to give special honor for the Shabbos and the holiday. The rabbis didn't make us do the full 18 blessings of the week, even though seemingly there's Kabbalistic reasons we don't do them, because we're not supposed to be doing the things, we don't do the work that we do, we don't have the efforts that we have during the week on Shabbos like we have in the week. Nevertheless, therefore, in order to honor the Shabbos, we don't make one daven the full weekday davening, and we instituted a middle blessing in replace of the 18 blessings or the 16 blessings. But if you did bracha shachal, but if you made a mistake and you started it, you might as well finish it because you're allowed to say it. You're not saying something you shouldn't be saying. You're saying something that he instituted that you don't have to say. Even because halachically you could have said it, it's just that the rabbis kind of wanted to lessen the requirement for the intensity of the prayer and kind of made it into a Shabbos prayer. But therefore, it's okay to continue to say the blessing and finish it and then start the Shabbos blessing. We're going to learn soon next week, because we're finishing here, that although that's min hadin, a person who makes that mistake is considered a person who's not God-fearing. A person who, it's a sign of lack of fear of God. Even though that we sometimes all make that mistake, you're davening fast because it shows you're not concentrating. If you're properly saying the words, looking in the siddur, then you wouldn't make that mistake. It's only because you're not paying attention to what you're doing. So it's not a good sign. It's not a good omen on a person who makes that mistake. We're going to learn that. Yes, Aaron.
I heard that even though the Rebbe knew by heart the whole prayer book, he would still read out of the prayer book.
Of course, the Rebbe was very into that. The Rebbe tell people all the time who had all kind of challenges. Make sure you look in the siddur when you daven. Don't daven from the outside. And he says, where does this go to? What's the middle part from Atachonen until the Ritzei? Because that's the part that we omit during Shabbos Yom Tov, and we put in the middle blessing for Shabbos. He says like this: if this should happen to the Chazan, oops, that happened to me this last Shabbos, when repeating Shemona Esrei, he does not complete the bracha. Good, I did the right thing. I didn't complete the bracha. I right away changed to the Shabbos bracha. I figured that was the ruling. Okay. Number 48, there's no 48, is there? All right, so that's pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, there's a 48, here it is. Just a reference. Okay, I think that covers it. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to...
How would they say if you made the mistake, you're not God-fearing? You're the last person we would think that is not God-fearing.
I'm telling you a fact. You could say I'm saying what I was reading too fast. I was in a rush. I wanted to get home.
But you're God-fearing. That's my point.
I get that. Maybe I'm not as God-fearing as I should be. Obviously we could all fear God a little more. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone else? Last questions?
I was not gonna say exactly the same thing as Aaron, that you are like it couldn't be you. I mean, like in your case, there must be something else.
No. The law is the law. The law is the law. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Laila Tov.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you for joining. Take care.
Yeah.
Good night.